I was standing in their kitchen, slicing vegetables, when my daughter-in-law suddenly said, "You're not even helping. Why should we keep feeding you?" At first, I thought I heard her wrong, but she didn't even blink. She meant it. And my son, Daniel, he just sat there scrolling through his phone like nothing happened. I turned to him and asked if he heard what she said. He didn't even look up properly. "Mom, we've talked about this," he mumbled. "Groceries cost a lot. You've been here for 2 months. It's starting to feel like you're not even trying." I froze, holding the knife in midair. Not trying. I cook, clean, do laundry, pick up little Ava from daycare. I've been doing everything I can to help, but he brushed it off like it didn't matter. "That doesn't pay the bills," he said. Maria, my daughter-in-law, was tying up the trash like it was just another normal day. "We're not trying to be mean," she added, "but this just isn't working. We can't afford an extra mouth. It's not personal, it's survival. Survival. From 2 people who ate meals I cooked, on plates I washed, in a home I helped pay for." I stared at them. "You want me to leave, over food?" Maria didn't even meet my eyes. "We thought maybe your sister could take you in, or maybe you could try one of those senior homes. You'd have more space there anyway. My sister's been dead for years." They knew that. Still, Daniel stood up and sighed, like he was the one being wronged. "Mom, you raised me to be practical. Rent, daycare, inflation, it's just too much. This isn't sustainable." And I just stood there, remembering all the sacrifices, the night shifts I worked just to buy his school books, the Christmas I skipped dinner so he could have a decent present, the $18,000 I pulled from my retirement to help them with their wedding and move-in costs. And now I was a burden. Over groceries, my suitcase was already packed by the door, waiting, like I was some stray dog ready to be dropped off. "We'll call you a cab," Maria said, checking her watch. "You'll be fine. You'll land on your feet." I looked around one last time, the fridge full of food I bought, the casserole I made still warm on the counter, and I didn't cry. I just grabbed my bag and walked to the door. "The rent," I said quietly. "I helped cover it for a whole year so you two could stay afloat." Maria rolled her eyes. "And we're grateful, but that doesn't mean you get a lifetime pass." I nodded. "Right, a lifetime pass." Then I stepped out, no hug, no goodbye, just the sound of the door locking behind me. What they didn't know was earlier that day, I got a call from a lawyer. My late brother had left me everything, his whole estate, including a fully paid-off 4-unit building right in the heart of the city. I hadn't told Daniel or Maria because I wanted to see how they'd treat me when they thought I had nothing. Now I knew. The cab dropped me off outside their building. I sat on the curb with my suitcase in my lap like it was the only thing I had left. The ride had been quiet. I didn't say a word, just gave the driver the address of a cheap motel near the train station. My mind kept going in circles around one thought: food. That's what broke us. Not the decades I spent raising Daniel alone. Not the furniture I helped buy. Not even the wedding debt I cleared so they could start their life fresh. It came down to a grocery bill. I remembered the night Daniel had a 104-degree fever as a toddler, was on the phone with the ER, stirring soup with one hand and holding him in the other. I remembered missing 5 years' worth of birthdays while working night shifts at the nursing home. I remembered pawning my mother's jewelry when his car broke down in college so he could make it to his internship. And when Maria lost her job during the pandemic, I paid their utility bills. I never asked for credit, I just wired the money and let them believe it was Daniel's bonus. When Ava was born, who stayed up with the baby so they could rest, who filled their freezer with meals. But none of that mattered now, because I didn't swipe my card at the grocery store last week. The motel room was tiny, just 2 lamps, 1 window, and a shower that sounded like it was wheezing with every drop. I didn't even bother unpacking. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my phone, just staring at a message from my sister. It was short. "You want the key or not?" That was how we talked, quick, to the point. A few years before our dad died, he quietly told us about a small 4-unit building he had bought a long time ago. It wasn't in his will. It wasn't in any legal papers. Just a private thing he kept for us, under a quiet trust. After he passed, my sister had been managing it in the background just enough to keep the city off her back. I never asked to use it. I didn't think I'd need to. But now it felt like a second chance. I called her and said, "Yeah, I'm ready." She didn't rub it in. "No, I told you so." She just gave me the address and said, "You're on the title. Do whatever you want." I didn't cry. I just sat in that small motel room, staring at the wall. They didn't just kick me out over groceries. They showed me exactly where I stood in their lives. And for the first time in a long time, things felt clear. This wasn't rock bottom. This was a wake-up call. The next morning, I woke up with a stiff neck and a heavy chest. A half-empty coffee cup sat beside the bed, and my phone buzzed again. It was my sister. Heard what happened. Ready to talk. I called her right away. We didn't talk much since Dad passed. Family stuff had gotten messy. But this felt different. She didn't even say hello, just asked, "So, you still want that key?" It was our code. Years ago, before Dad got sick, he handed us each a copy of the key and said, "This building's not in the will. I don't want anyone poking around. It's under both your names. Keep it quiet." I was in my 30s back then, and the building was already old, a tired fourplex in a quiet corner of the city, but Dad held on to it like a secret backup plan. "Just in case everything goes to hell," he'd said. I almost forgot it existed. My sister didn't. She'd been paying the basic bills and taxes to keep it standing. "It's empty now," she told me. "I checked last week. No tenants. You can move in, or do whatever you want. It's yours too." I thanked her and promised I'd go check it out. That afternoon, I drove over in a borrowed car. The building looked worn but sturdy, red brick, all 4 units still standing. Nothing broken. I stood outside the gate for a full minute before unlocking it. The front door opened without a squeak. No squatters, no mess, just dust and quiet. I walked through each unit one by one. 2 bedrooms each. Small but functional kitchens. Private laundry. It all needed updating. Sure, but it was solid. As I ran my hand along the railing on the upstairs landing, I thought, this could work. No, this could change everything. Over the next few days, I filled a notebook with repair notes, room measurements, and contractor numbers. I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister, how serious I was about fixing it up. Then one afternoon, I opened a closet in the back unit and found something that stopped me cold. A stack of my dad's old ledgers. Inside were pages and pages of his neat, blocky handwriting lists of repairs he'd done. Old tenant names, even little sketches of renovations he'd planned. He built that place with his own 2 hands. He never talked about it, never showed it off. He just quietly made sure it would be there when we needed it. I ran my hand over an old wooden cabinet and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." He was never big on words, but this was his way of telling me he still had my back. I didn't cry. I didn't have to. What I felt wasn't sadness, it was something waking up inside me. A spark. I had shelter. I had ownership. And soon, I'd have renters. The place still looked rough, but it was mine. Over the next few weeks, I got to work. I cleared out old furniture, patched up walls, hired painters, and scrubbed every room until it didn't smell like dust and forgotten years anymore. Little by little, that tired building started to feel like home. Not just for me, but for the new life I was building from the ground up. I didn't have a plan, just a checklist, some stubbornness, and a whole lot of spite. Out of the 4 units, I picked Unit 3 for myself. It had the best light. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not a single friend, and definitely not Daniel. It felt good to have something that was truly mine, untouched by anyone's opinions or judgment. While the construction crews worked during the day, I'd sit at the small dining table with my notepad, jotting things down. New cabinets. Check. Call Jerry to fix the heater. Post rental listings. Not yet. I wanted every detail just right. Even the last coat of white paint on the trim had to be perfect. By October, I had 3 clean, bright rental units. Nothing fancy, but everything worked. No leaks, no cracks, no mold. I listed them through a property manager named Teresian, older woman who didn't ask too many questions. She handled everything. The ads, the calls, the tours. I told her I'd review applications from behind the scenes. She didn't mind. Only 3 days later, an email came in. A new application for Unit 1. A couple with a young daughter, steady income, okay credit, hoping to move in before November. I opened the file. Names: Daniel and Maria Carson. I stared at the screen until the laptop went dark. Teresa had no idea who they were. She just forwarded the file like any other. I clicked it open and read every word: Daniel's signature, Maria's job details, Ava's name listed under children, There was even a sweet little note: we love the neighborhood, looking to start fresh after a rough few months. We're quiet, responsible, and want a stable place to raise our daughter. I almost laughed. Start fresh. After pushing me out over a bag of frozen peas, I called Teresa. Set up a showing, I said. I'll come with you. Just introduce me as your assistant. Don't tell them who I am. She paused. Are you sure? Very. On the day of the tour, I wore a plain beige cardigan and pulled my hair back. Teresa introduced me as Marcy, her colleague. Daniel and Maria didn't recognize me. Not at first. Daniel looked thinner. Maria wore sunglasses. Ava clutched a stuffed rabbit by one ear, wandering like she was used to moving all the time. It's small, Maria said, glancing around, but cleaner than the last place. Daniel checked under the kitchen sink. No mold. The last 2 places had black rot. Teresa smiled. No mold here. Full renovation. New pipes. New floors. Then Maria said something that nearly made me drop my clipboard. Does the landlord live here? The last one was always breathing down our necks. Teresa nodded toward me. She doesn't, but Marcy helps out sometimes. Maria looked me over quickly. As long as no one bothers us, we've had enough judgment from family lately. I didn't blink. This building's peaceful, I said softly, and the walls are thick. Ava ran into one of the bedrooms. This one's mine, she shouted. Daniel followed her, mumbling about finally having space and asking about rent. Then I saw Maria digging through her tote bag. She pulled out a granola bar, same brand I used to keep stocked in their pantry. She tossed the wrapper into the trash like it meant nothing. Teresa leaned toward me. Are you sure you want to rent to them? I kept my eyes straight ahead. Let's see how they handled the next step. As they were leaving, Maria called back. We'll take it if the lease is fair. Daniel added. Just don't raise the rent in 6 months. We're not looking for trouble. We just want some stability. I gave them a small nod. Of course. They walked out holding hands, Ava skipping behind them. They had no idea they'd just applied to live in a building I owned. I went back upstairs to Unit 3, shut the door behind me, and sat down in my kitchen. My hands were folded on the table. Stability, they said. I was about to give it to them, just not for free. The official screening was a formality. Their credit was okay. Job history steady enough. Teresa had already done a background check, but I wasn't interested in paperwork. I wanted to see how they acted when they didn't know I was watching. So Teresa called them back, told them there would be one more step, a final walkthrough and lease discussion. She said it was standard. Just a Q&A. Nothing unusual. But for me, it wasn't about the lease. It was about the truth. They showed up early. Ava was wearing the same pink jacket I gave her 2 Christmases ago. Maria looked polished, full makeup, high heels that were way too fancy for a casual apartment tour. Daniel wore a dress shirt tucked into jeans, but it looked like he'd just rolled out of bed and tried to fix himself up last minute. He was trying to look put together, but exhaustion clung to him. Inside Unit 2, Teresa had the lease folder open on the coffee table. I stood nearby, still playing the role of Marcy, flipping through pages and pretending to check tenant files. Maria glanced around the kitchen and smirked. These finishes are decent for the area. You'd never guess from the outside, though. Her voice faded, like she realized mid-sentence she was insulting the place. Daniel jumped in to cover it. It's a good price, better than most places. Honestly, as long as the landlord isn't weird, we're happy. I turned to Teresa and asked, just loud enough for them to hear, did we finalize the rent increase policy yet? Teresa replied calmly, 3% annually. 5% if property taxes go up. Maria whipped her head around. So the rent goes up every year. Teresa nodded. It's in the lease. Everything's clearly outlined. Daniel sighed. Figures, just our luck. Still better than living with family. At least here we don't have to walk on eggshells. I stared at him. He said it like what they did to me never happened, as if I was the problem, not the one they kicked out over frozen peas. Maria added, we were doing someone a favor, and somehow we ended up the villains. It's always like that. People move in, eat your food, and then act like they own the place. Teresa glanced at me. She didn't know the whole story, but from the names and the tension, I could tell she had figured out enough. She gave me the floor. So, I asked, do you see yourselves living here long term? Maria answered first. Maybe. Depends on how ... welcoming the place is. She looked me straight in the eyes when she said it. I didn't flinch. You'll find it very welcoming, I said calmly. The landlord values respect above all. Daniel nodded, flipping to the signature page. We just want to move on, you know. It's been a tough year, people taking advantage. No one respects boundaries anymore. I couldn't stop myself. Must be exhausting. Maria snorted. Tell me about it. Teresa cleared her throat. Final step, first and last month's rent. Then you're all set to move in on the 1st of next month. Perfect, Daniel said, standing up. Finally feels like something's going right. I stood too. I'll make sure everything's spotless. Wouldn't want to ruin your fresh start. Then Maria turned to Teresa. We'll be dealing with you directly, right? Not her. Teresa gave a quick glance at me. No worries. Marcy just helps with renovations and tenant screening. Maria nodded, still eyeing me. Good. Nothing personal. We've just had bad luck with housekeeper types sticking their noses in. Gets messy. That was the moment. A little jab hidden behind a fake smile. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, don't worry. Boundaries are my specialty. They signed the lease, paid the deposit, and shook Teresa's hand like they'd just sealed some big win. Then they walked out, Maria chatting, Daniel carrying Ava's bunny backpack. Completely unaware that they were moving into a building I owned, I waited until their car pulled away before turning to Teresa. Still think I should rent to them? I asked. She hesitated. No, but I think you know exactly what you're doing. I nodded. They wanted independence. Fine, let them have a taste of it. I wasn't going to evict them. Not yet. That would have been too easy. I wanted them to live under my roof, pay rent to me, month after month, thinking they were in control. Until they realized they never really were. They moved in on a Saturday afternoon, 3 mismatched suitcases, a second-hand coffee table, and a bad attitude. Maria was barking orders from the curb. Daniel looked like his back was already giving out from hauling boxers. Ava ran up the stairs, smiling. She waved at me through the window of Unit 3, not knowing who I was. I gave her a small wave back, then turned away. Watching them settle in felt surreal. They unpacked the same dishes I'd given them for Christmas, hung up a framed picture I remembered helping Maria pick out, back when she still pretended to like me, set their old couch, the one I helped them clean after Ava spilled juice right in the middle of the living room. They were trying to rebuild something stable. They had no idea the foundation they were standing on was mine. For the first few weeks, everything was quiet. Rent came on time, no complaints, no maintenance calls. But I was patient, because the real story, it hadn't even started yet. I saw them sometimes in the hallway, on the front steps. Maria would give me a polite nod. Daniel avoided looking at me altogether. They still hadn't recognized me. Maybe it was the darker hair, maybe the glasses, or maybe they just didn't want to see me. Pretending I didn't exist was probably easier than facing what they'd done. Then, in November, rent came in 3 days late. Teresa texted me, should we charge a late fee or let it slide? I told her, charge it. The next day Maria emailed, confused. There must be some mistake, our bank shows it went through on the 2nd. Teresa forwarded her the transaction log. It had posted on the 5th. 3 days late, Maria didn't reply. In December, they were late again. This time by 5 days. Another fee. Then came the complaint. Daniel messaged Teresa saying the upstairs neighbor walks like an elephant at night. Teresa passed it on to me. I laughed. I walked barefoot in that unit, but after that, I started walking heavier just a bit, just enough. One morning, Maria knocked on my door. She clearly didn't expect anyone to answer. When I opened it, she froze. Oh, I thought, she mumbled. You needed something, I asked. She blinked, confused. Do you live here? I do, I said. Been here a while. Oh, sorry if we've been noisy. Not at all, I said. She stood there like she was trying to figure something out but just couldn't. Then she mumbled something and left. In January, I raised the rent by 8%. Still legal, still in the lease, just high enough to make them feel it. Teresa sent the notices. A day later, Maria emailed again, this time, angry. We just moved in. Isn't this a bit extreme? Teresa replied. Rent increases were clearly stated in the lease. Owner approved it. Maria snapped back. Tell the owner to enjoy bleeding people dry. I almost replied myself, but instead, I told Teresa to start sending firmer reminders about rent. In February, they They were late again. By now, I knew the signs. Daniel, pacing outside on his phone. Maria calling her mom. Smaller grocery bags. No more takeout. They were sinking. And I was watching. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the shift. One day, Maria passed me in the hallway with Ava and didn't say hello. Instead, loud enough for me to hear, she said to her daughter, "Some people really don't know when to move out of the way." I smiled to myself. I wasn't in their way. I was above them literally, financially. Their rent went to me. I was their landlord. They just didn't know it yet, but they were about to. Mid-March, their rent check bounced. No message, no heads up, just a failed payment and silence. Teresa followed the usual process. She sent the 3-day notice. Still no response. Then Daniel showed up at her office with Ava. He looked desperate. He tried to argue it must be a mistake. We always pay on time. We're good tenants. Teresa didn't argue. She handed him a breakdown of every late payment, the penalties, and the bounced check. "If you can fix this by Friday," she said, "we won't escalate. If not, the owner has authorized eviction proceedings." He left without another word. Friday came and went. Nothing. Then a voicemail from Maria landed in Teresa's inbox. Long, frantic. "We're struggling. The owner needs to be more understanding. Please." I listened to it 3 times. Then I told Teresa, "Go ahead. Post the notice. File the paperwork." March 21st, 7:42 a.m. I walked downstairs to Unit 1 and taped the eviction notice to their door myself. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the quiet. Then I walked back up to my apartment and waited. 2 hours later, Maria opened the door and screamed. She ripped the paper down and stormed outside in her robe, dragging Ava inside while yelling into her phone. 2 minutes later, Teresa called me. "They want a face-to-face. They're threatening legal action, claiming retaliation." "Good," I said. "Tell them to meet me here tomorrow, noon." That night, I ironed my clothes, printed a fresh lease with all the clauses highlighted, and got ready. Noon came. I buzzed them in like it was any other meeting. They walked into my apartment unit, 3 completely confused. Maria looked around. "I thought we were meeting the property manager." "No," I said, standing by the window. "You're meeting the owner." It took them a second. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Maria looked at me, then at the papers, then back. "Wait, what?" "I own the building," I said. "Signed over from my father's trust. You've been paying me rent this whole time." Maria blinked fast. "This is a joke." "No," I said calmly. "The joke was when you kicked me out of your home over a couple of extra eggs. The punchline: I now legally control the roof over your head." Daniel finally spoke. "You tricked us. You applied," I said. "I approved. You signed. I collected. What part of that is a trick? You let us move in knowing exactly who we were." Maria snapped. "Yes," I said, "and I gave you what you said you wanted: independence, responsibility, and now, consequences." Maria just stood there, frozen. Ava peeked from behind her, clutching the same bunny as always. Daniel stepped forward. "Mom, please, we've got a kid. We're trying. We made mistakes. Don't do this." "You threw me out," I said, "and now things are balanced." "You're doing this out of revenge," Maria barked. "How low can you go?" I didn't even blink. "I'm doing this to set a boundary. You had no problem throwing me out when I had nothing. Now, I have something and I'm done being used." Daniel's voice cracked. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," I said. "You can leave on your own, or wait for the court date, your choice. But either way, you're leaving." Maria stared at me like she wanted to throw something, but there was nothing left to throw. The power shift was complete. They turned around and left, the eviction notice still crumpled in Maria's fist. The door closed behind them. Silence. I stood in the middle of my living room and took a deep breath. Everything felt calm, steady, quiet. It wasn't just about kicking them out of my building. I had finally kicked them out of my life, out of that space in my heart where guilt used to live, and that felt like closure. They were gone by the end of the month. No goodbyes, no apology. They left behind a dented microwave, a broken drawer, and one trash bag they didn't even bother to tie up. I hired a cleaning crew, changed the locks, and moved on. There was no drama, no last words, just silence. Exactly what I wanted. Teresa, as always, handled things like a pro. She never even said their names again. I think she understood this wasn't just about property. It was personal. It was healing. I didn't throw a party. I didn't gloat. The next morning, I simply made myself a cup of coffee in my own kitchen and sat by the window. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for something bad to happen. No one was watching me like I was a burden. No one was asking for money. No one was making me feel like I didn't belong. The space was mine. The quiet was mine. My choices were finally my own. I kept the building, rented out the other 2 units, one to a retired teacher, the other to a single mom with a baby. They paid their rent on time. They said good morning in the hallway. That was all I needed. No attitude, no games, just kindness. Some evenings, I'd sit on the front steps with a book in my lap and think about everything I used to put up with, the guilt, the cold shoulders, the comments that cut just deep enough to sting, and all of it, over groceries, over space, over pride. Let them keep their pride. I found peace. And peace, I've learned, is the most valuable thing in the world. It costs more than any fancy house or full bank account. Do I regret helping them before? No. That's who I was. I gave love. I gave support. I gave second chances. But when they told me I was too expensive to feed, I gave them distance. And that was the best gift I've ever given myself. That's it for today. What would you have done in her shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from you. And hey, if this story touched you, check out the next one. You won't want to miss it.